Hey guys, welcome to the College Predictor. This is my first video, and we'll be going over Week 1 predictions for my top 10 games. We'll be going over the lines, some backstories, potentially some rivalries, and some new conference play. So we're going to start off with the University of Texas San Antonio and the Houston Cougars. This game's in Houston, so they're going to have a pretty high crowd because this is always a big rivalry game. And now that Houston's in the Big 12, there's going to be higher expectations for them, knowing that if they were in the AAC, they could just breeze through a season. UTSA is still in Conference USA, though, and they think they deserve a spot in a Power 5 conference, so they're going to be hungry in this game. Meanwhile, Houston is losing some key players to the draft that they're not going to be able to get back, like their quarterback Clayton Tune, their number one receiver Tank Dell, and their fullback Derek Parrish, which is a huge loss because fullbacks are very important. So for this game, UTSA is a 2-point favorite, and the over/under is 59.5. I do think UTSA is going to win this game by more than 2 points, and they're going to win this game by 4 points. It's going to be a close game, and the over/under 59.5 is going to be under. Let's go to our next game. Our next game is West Virginia at number 7 ranked Penn State. Now, Penn State's my second favorite team in college football, behind a team that you will see in this video later in the biggest game this week. So, Penn State, we know that they're super incredibly talented. Like on defense, they have 2 solid corners that will get drafted next year, in Kalen King and Storm Duck. And they also have a top 4 defensive end in Chop Robinson, who's a beast. So their defense is going to come in hot. And the Mountaineers, this is an old rivalry, so the Mountaineers are going to feel that sense of urgency. But Penn State, their atmosphere, it's not going to be a whiteout, but it's still electric. So therefore, they're 20.5-point favorites. But I don't think they'll win by that much. So I say Penn State by 17, and the over/under is 48.5. They're gonna go over. Let's go to our next game, which includes the shock team of last year. Not the South Alabama Jaguars, but the Tulane Green Waves. Now, the last game Tulane played, they beat a team that was supposedly a playoff team and a national championship team in USC. And Tulane, they shocked the world this last year, going from a 2-win season all the way up to a bowl game, Power 5 wins, all of that. So they're going to come in with expectations this year. However, they lose a bunch of their players, including their 2 best, their running back Tyjae Spears and their middle linebacker Dorian Williams. Now, they still have their quarterback in Pratt, but South Alabama, they're a solid team. They had a 10-win year last year, and they're the number 1 in the South Belt, in my opinion. So I think they're going to cover the spread of Tulane as 6.5 favorites, and they're going to win this game by a touchdown. Let's go to our next game. Now, this next game, it doesn't seem like this would be a game willing to be on the top 10, but Toledo, they're a unique team in my opinion. I think Toledo has been a really consistent team in the Mid-American Conference. Plus, Illinois lost a lot of their key players. They lost their quarterback, Tommy DeVito, to the Giants. They lost their running back, Chase Brown, to the Bengals. But they still have their number 1 player, in my opinion, defensive tackle Jerzah Newton. He's a beast. I think he will make it hard for the offensive line and the quarterback of Toledo. Plus, this game's at Illinois. They're 9-point favorites. I say that they're going to win by 20 points. I think it's going to be a blowout compared to what they think in Vegas. So, Illinois is going to win by 20. Let's go to our next game, which is, in my opinion, the best game on Saturday, which is going to be the Duke's Mayo Classic. Not the bowl game, the Classic, which is the 2 Carolinas. Now, this is in a neutral site, I believe. I think it's being played at the Panthers Stadium. So it's going to be about a 50-50 split. If it's in South Carolina, then they're just going to dominate because South Carolina has a top 10 atmosphere in college football, especially at night games, so this isn't a night game. North Carolina is ranked, though. They're ranked the 21st team in the nation going into the year, and they have a superstar quarterback in Drake May. He's, I think, in my opinion, the fourth best quarterback in this year's class going into next year. Plus, North Carolina always has a solid team, but South Carolina, they're a drive team. They will fight till the end. They will never give up. And Spencer Rattler, he's very inconsistent, but I think South Carolina is going to come out with a minor upset, and they're going to win by a touchdown. So North Carolina will lose as 2.5-point favorites. Let's go to our next game, which includes one of the most talented teams in this season, which is going to be the Washington Huskies. They have so much talent. Their quarterback, Michael Penix, we know from last year that he's a dog, an absolute dog. They have a top 5 receiver in Rome Osduz. He's very solid. He's a deep threat. He can run slot. He's quick. He can run outside. He can run anything. And they also have a superstar defensive player in Braylon Trice. Now, Braylon Trice, number 3 edge this year in college football, in my opinion, behind JT Tuimoloau and Jared Verse. So Washington at home, they're very high favorites as 14, but I expect higher from them. They're going to win this game by 27. Our next game is the most anticipated game for this week 1, and it's because more than 50 transfers from one of these schools. Now, Colorado's a new team. They barely have any same players, and they have the most successful coach, the number 1 cornerback of all time in the NFL, Dallas Cowboy great, prime time Deion Sanders. This is his first job coaching in FBS college. We know how successful he was in Jackson State. He was successful in high school football. He was obviously a great success in the NFL. But can he bring it against a team that was the runner-ups last year in the national championship? I think he can bring it, and this is my reasoning. Shedeur Sanders, a transfer quarterback, they needed a quarterback, and TCU lost all their big pieces. They lost 2 of their best offensive linemen, Steve Avili and Alan Ali. They lost their quarterback in Max Duggan. They lost 4 of their weapons in Quinn Johnson, Darius Davis, Kendre Miller, and D. Marcondo. And then they also lost their captain at middle linebacker, D. Winters, and their number 1 corner, Trevarius Hodges Tomlinson. So they're a very young team, we could say. But they have a great head coach. So they have Sonny Dykes. And Colorado's not there yet. So as 20.5-point favorites, I think TCU is going to win by 10 against the Colorado Buffaloes. Our next game is a team that surprisingly has good quarterbacks in the NFL against a team that is known for beating top 5 opponents. We have Fresno State versus Purdue. Now, Fresno State just recently lost, as you can remember from that game against UCLA, I believe 2021, where they called Jake Haener the natural in college football. Well, he's off to New Orleans to back up another Fresno State quarterback in Derek Carr. So, the Bulldogs, they don't have a bunch of star power, but they're always solid in the Mountain West Conference. And Purdue, they lost Charlie Jones, their number 1 wide receiver. They lost their quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. But, after seeing what Purdue does to Michigan State, after what they do to Michigan, what they do to Iowa, they can win every game, but they choose not to because they're Purdue and they don't play football good. So I think as 3.5-point favorites, Purdue will win this game by 3. They're going to win by a field goal in Purdue. Our next game is the big one, which is going to be on Sunday night, neutral site, number 5 LSU, number 8 Florida State. Right here, this is my favorite college right here. So this game is by far the most anticipated game, maybe of the season, because remember last year, Jaden Daniels drives all the way down 99 yards, scores with time expiring. Down 1, Florida State blocks the kick, and that will go down as top 5 game last year. And Florida State, that kind of shock put them to become the Florida State that they used to be. But LSU, man, they got talent. Like, we're talking about a great quarterback in Jaden Daniels, their number 1 receiver in Malik Neighbors. They're ultra talented. We know that. And we know they could upset. We know they could win. But if you look at Florida State's talent, they have a top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback, Jordan Travis. They have a good receiver in Johnny Wilson. But the thing that stands out to me, the person that stands out to me, senior Jared Verse, defensive end, number 1 in college football. He will tear up any defense. So LSU's offensive line is going to have to play good. But as a Florida State fan, I'm biased. So LSU 2.5-point favorites? No, sir. Florida State by 7. And the last game we'll be going over today will be Monday night college football between Duke and Clemson. Now, we know Clemson, they're always a talented team. We know that they always have players getting drafted in the NFL, and they made that very clear last year with their 2 best defensive players, Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy, getting drafted. Now, they still have superstar talent, but the question that everyone's asking about, every Clemson critic, every Clemson fan, is Cade Klubnik going to be consistent enough to lead this team to a playoff or a Big 5 bowl game? Now, Duke, they're not known necessarily as a football school, but they've been shocking the last few years. They've made bowl games, and they've had talent on their team, but then again, they're Duke. You think they have 100 football championships? No. Clemson has success, and they are used to it. Clemson, 13-point favorites, way over. Clemson wins by 24. Alright, now that we're done with the games, we're going to be talking over some of the teams that went over today that can make runs future in the playoffs. We're going to start off with, as I already said, my favorite school, the Florida State Seminoles. Now, Florida State, they have high expectations this year. They're number 8 team in the nation, when last year they started unranked. Florida State was on a drought since the 2019-2020 season. And we remember how good they were in their prime. 2013, they went undefeated, won the BCS National Championship. They've had history winning championships. But can they bring out their 2013 version, Florida State? Because as of now, they're solid, they're a great team, but they haven't been able to make it to the big games. And they haven't been able to win those big, close games against Power 5, top 10 schools. So it's going to be interesting to see them, at the end of the month, play Clemson. And that game will be a must-watch, because the winner of that will most likely be the winner of the ACC. Now, their schedule is very similar to last year's. And they don't, besides LSU, Clemson, Miami, Florida, their games are going to be, very easily winnable. So they're going to have to take care of those games, not choke, and then they're going to have to fight it out and win the big games. If they could do that and Jordan Travis stays consistent, this team, they're making the playoffs. And they're not only making the playoffs, they're winning the national championship. Another team, Penn State. Now, questions about quarterback. If you don't know much about college football, I'm here to tell you that Drew Aller, who was backing up Sean Clifford for 1 year, very, very talented. And I think he is good enough, talented enough to handle the pressure of this Penn State team. And we know he'll be able to take on Minnesota and Rutgers and Indiana, all those mediocre teams. But will he be able to handle the big games? Because they have to play Michigan and Ohio State. this year. And one more test for him will be against Iowa. When they have their wideout, will he be able to handle a perfect atmosphere? If yes, this Penn State team could go a long way, because we know their defense is ultra talented. Secondary is not a problem. Like, that's the last concern of them. D-line, they're good. Linebackers could be a question. But not to mention that their O-line. They have probably the second best O-line. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, because it's like Oshuluyiwa. He's supposed to be a top 10 picks next year. So Penn State, very talented, could definitely make a run. And the last team that will be going over that can make a run, the Washington Huskies. I knew you guys were expecting LSU. Not today. It's Washington. Braylon Trice, Romo Zadunes, Michael Penix. Like, if you look every position, you'll notice, man, they're talented. Oh my God, they have good receivers. Why are their corners so good? Why do they have good defensive line? It's because Washington is one of the best recruiting schools in the nation. They are a football-first school. You don't hear about them in any other sport. Football, yes. They're not good in basketball. Their baseball team, they're mid. And no one really watches college soccer. So, Washington, very talented. And I think they can make a run. Oh, by the way, I'm joking about the college soccer. The playoffs are very fun to watch. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys learned a little bit about this week's games. Hopefully, if you have a bet, I helped you win some money. Make sure to tune in every week, because we'll be having more and more potential surprises. And remember, week 11, week 12, we'll be in some special destinations to film some videos. Alright, this is the College Predictor, and we'll see you next time.